That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Trade Talk. This week we've got Daredevil, the Man Without Fear. Infamously famous book by Frank Miller. Infamously famous. Haha. Yeah, so this is... If you've never read this before, like myself, the best way I can describe this is it's Batman Year One, but with Daredevil. Like, literally everything about it. It's almost the exact same fucking tone in every conceivable way. It's like a retelling of Daredevil's origin. This goes more into like the before he became Daredevil thing that it is like his first like time as Daredevil, but it's like the same tone, the same kind of ideas playing around in it. It's written in like, not crazy Frank Miller style, which I really like. What's funny is the version I got here has Frank Miller's original script in the back, and I only read a little bit of it because, I don't know, I just didn't have the time, but I really like this. Frank Miller's scripts, in the 80s at least, are exactly like Frank Miller's writing in the book itself. Act 1. At age 8, Matt Murdock is a dirty-faced little terror. His hair is an overgrown weed, bright orange in color. His eyes are green and wild. The impoverished neighborhood of Hell's Kitchen is his home. Its sun-baked streets and rattling fire escapes form his playground. Matt plagues fat patrolman Eichwitz, who'd throw Matt into juvenile court if it weren't for the black ski mask Matt wears to conceal his identity. Eichwitz is left puffing and red after Matt's boldest stunt. One sweltering summer afternoon, Matt steals Eichwitz's nightstick right from his belt, right in front of Julio and Rachel, and the other neighborhood brats Eichwitz had caught playing about an open fire hydrant. Eichwitz doesn't have a hope of catching Matt, the way the boy flies down the street on his skateboard and scrambles to the rooftops like a monkey. I mean, is that not the most Frank Miller thing you've ever heard? And it's the fucking script. Can you imagine being the artist and be like, can you imagine being John Romita Jr.? You're like, no panel breakdowns? um, it's so Frank Miller. It's hilarious. But then, it's interesting to see how that tone gets across, though, because you kind of get it. Like, they really don't... It really does break down exactly like the script says. It's just... It's so totally off. It's hilarious. But yeah, then, like, Frank Miller goes in and adds different caption. He doesn't script out the captions and dialogue. Summertime in the Manhattan neighborhood of Hell's Kitchen. The days are bright and hot and smell of mischief. Oh no, full of mischief. And the nights are cool and restless with the hum of the city calling to the boy, Matt Murdock. Calling to him, promising him something he cannot yet understand. Soon Dad will call him in, and Matt will toss under the covers and stare into the night sky and wait for the dawn and more mischief. It's so Frank Miller. I love it. This was before Frank Miller went crazy. But yeah, so we get some previews of Matt's life when he was a kid. We get the background of his father being the boxer that was kind of forced into being a mob enforcer. Otherwise, they'd come after his kid. We get Matt's trouble with bullying and how his dad told him he wasn't allowed to fight back. Which has an interesting turn because when he does fight back and goes tells his dad, so thinking that his dad will be proud of him, his dad hits him, and that's just completely breaks Matt's mind. And I like this section of dialogue, or I like this monologue here. And if even Dad can be wrong, then anyone can do bad things. Anybody at all. The only way to stop people from being bad is to make rules. Laws. Somewhere in a long and lonely night, the boy's course is set. He will study the rules. He will study the laws. So, like, the idea of why does Matt Murdock become a lawyer isn't, like, is baked into the character now, and it's not just Stan Lee saying, oh, well, now I can have him go represent that Spider-Man whenever he gets in trouble with the law, blah, blah, blah. So now it's, like, baked into, it's a deep-seated character thing, and it's just, it's perfect. And then it goes through, you know, him losing his eyesight and gaining superpowers, meeting Stick for the first time and training with Stick on how to use his extra senses. I love this 9-panel grid. You don't see Frank Miller knock out the 9-panel grid very often, but damn, can he do it? Can he, like, script it well? I mean, you got to give some credit to you got to give a lot of credit to John Romita Jr. here, but this plays and paces off really, really well of Matt learning how to use the powers. That's really, really cool. He also learns how to shoot a barrel bow and arrow. That gets interesting. So all kinds of stuff with Stick gets put in here. Oh, beautiful. And then, you know, stuff with the father happens where his dad decides not to throw a fight and gets the shit kicked out of him and he gets killed for it. Then we kind of fast forward a bit to, we don't fast forward. Matt goes on a bit of a spree and beats the shit out of the guys that killed his dad. Kind of hunts him down and takes him out, which is quite an accomplishment since not only is he a child, but he's also blind. Uses his ninja-ing. But along the way, during this attempt to catch these guys and get justice, he breaks into a brothel to hunt one of them down, and during the scuffle, one of the girls falls out a window and to her death, and Matt blames himself for that, as he probably should. Because of this, Stick abandons him, yada yada. So Matt goes off to college where he meets Foggy and starts studying and deals with bullying and helps Foggy out, and then he meets Elektra Nachios when they're teenagers, and she kind of just starts to act like a thorn in his side, and there's a courtship and a relationship built up, and you know, it's Miller planting the seeds for things that he'd already done, if I'm remembering my Daredevil timeline correctly. So it's a bit of a retcon in a way there, but it works, it's fun, it's like this interesting, like, you can see that this girl is nuts, and Matt's nuts for her, and that's really cool. I love this scene where she's playing this musical piece perfectly that's very, very complicated, and Matt throws one of her bodyguards on top of the piano, and then she just keeps playing and doesn't even bother. And then that night, even though Matt's been shot in the arm and bruised to hell, he gets back to his apartment and he's waiting in the shower for him, but Elektra Nachios. And they do it! They have sex! So, you know, lots of cool stuff going on there, lots of cool character building and things, and then you see that Elektra's pretty knuckin' futz, as she goes off to, you know, just kill some criminals. She, like, you know, lures them into attacking her so she will have the chance to kill them. Very, you know, Charles Bronson Death Wishes-ish. She just murders the shit out of them for fun, and enjoys doing it, and yada yada yada. Her relationship with Matt kind of fizzles out because she doesn't want to bring him down with her. And this is all coupled with the rise of the Kingpin, it turns out, and then Matt kind of comes back to New York after the Kingpin's had a while to establish control, and has to deal with some of the crime in that, but he doesn't want to take action on it. He wants to go live his life as a big corporate lawyer now. But events with the Kingpin selling child pornography and shit like that kind of crossed Matt's radar with a girl that he was befriending, and he goes into it and gets involved in the situation and all this madness, and ends up breaking up a child sex ring that the Kingpin's men were running. And it's all, it's the classic black suit. The proto Daredevil suit. So he goes in and he does all the fighting, ninjaing, and beats up Kingpin's men and saves the day. And that's when he decides that he can't just sit on the sidelines anymore. He's got to stay in New York, stay in Hell's Kitchen, and bring justice to it as Daredevil. Kind of concludes the series there. So I'd never read much Daredevil before. I was reading Charles Soule's run for a while there, and I was kind of disappointed in it, so I dropped it. But I'd always heard people talk about Frank Miller's Daredevil, and yeah, it's damn good. There's no denying it. It's Frank Miller when he was at his peak. It's everything that Frank Miller's known for doing well. It's problematic as fuck, and I just don't care because I can take it for what it is. I know exactly what Frank Miller is trying to do and getting at, and I know where this kind of thought leads to him and all that, but I don't know. I can still enjoy the things that there are to enjoy in it, is kind of what it comes down to for me, and there's undeniably this undertone that works for it that makes it really, really interesting to read. I also like the way Kingpin gets his rise here as a mob, as a gangster that's willing to do the really dirty things. Like, he shows that he infiltrates the old mob, who are unwilling to flood the streets with drugs because their own families live in those neighborhoods, and they don't want junkies for relatives, and they don't want to have the dirtiness of child sex rings on their conscience, and Kingpin just doesn't care. Yeah, I like that. That's very ruthless, kind of evil businessman like of Kingpin, evil gangster. So that stuff really works for me. It's just really classic Frank Miller, and this was, again, before he went crazy. Plus, John Romita Jr. on the art is just gorgeous in, like, that really gritty, ugly kind of way. Like, Frank Miller obviously does the gritty, ugly art, but, his style is still reasonably limited. John Romita Jr. is able to do the same thing, but sell it in such a grandiose kind of way. And so you got this big, scary dude, and he's just covered in hair. It's just a hairy son of a bitch, and it just makes it look so much like grimier, because you don't usually see that kind of thing of like the just bespeckled chest hair kind of thing. So just little details like that. I mean, it's not a little detail. That's a lot of squigglies to draw. Stuff like that can really sell a book and just make it work. It's just cool. It's a good story. It's a good story. It's well done. I like it. I really like it. I don't know if I'm going to read anything else in Frank Miller's run. I'm just kind of working my way through a bunch of different things here and there. Next week will be some Black Panther for you, so look forward to that. Anyway, everyone, thanks very much for watching. Till next time, bye!
That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.